Hey, everybody. Good Sunday morning. I wanted to talk a few minutes this morning about the great decline in churches across the country. And it's been going on now for maybe a couple of decades now. And being that I'm on the cusp of turning 70, I've lived a long life. And through a lot of that life, churches were increasing by the tens of thousands. And there was a great move of what many call a move of God from Azusa Street and across the South. And we went through great gatherings of faith healers and tent revivals. Here in Atlanta, you could go out to at Lakewood Fairgrounds. They'd put up tents that would seat 10,000 people, and people would be packed and standing around the outside of the tents. And people would come out from near and far to hear the message of the gospel. And I was just scanning through the news this morning, and I seen where the death of Anita Bryant happened like a month ago. And I'm not going to come on here and be like, oh, she was evil and she was this and she was that and this and that and the other. But she was on the wrong side of history, and she was on the wrong side of decency and on the wrong side of love for your fellow man. And for many people that don't remember that time, it was back in the 70s. And she was a big star across the country. She traveled with Bob Hope and entertained the troops. And she is at one time she was a singer that had her own hits on the radio. And she was the All-American girl, former Miss America, I believe it was. The obituary said she died December the 16th in Edmond, Oklahoma. And it said before her anti-LGBTQ plus positions made her a favorite of religious conservatives. Bryant was known for appearances in commercials. Her time appearing as Bob Hope's holiday tours of overseas troops and for singing the battle hymn of the Republic at the Super Bowl in 1971. She sang at both Republican and Democratic conventions, at the White House when Lyndon Johnson was president, and was at Johnson's graveside service in 1973. But she, at the height of her popularity, she took on an issue of she did not want homosexuals to be allowed to teach in public schools. And that became her whole catalyst, her crusade. And it was a crusade. It was a crusade against gay and lesbian people. And the thing it all started was there was an ordinance that was passed by the city council of Miami or Dade County or somewhere down there, where that they couldn't discriminate and fire somebody in public education just because they were homosexual. Well, she was greatly offended by that. And so she led a crusade, and believe me, when the organized Christian church, especially the evangelicals of the Christian church, have always had a deep homophobic hatred for anybody that was homosexual. And she gave them the wherewithal to come out by the tens and hundreds of thousands and just be real vicious and have all this packaged up hate toward homosexuals and gay people. Was that the beginning of the great decline in Christianity, when evangelicals and Southern Baptists and Christians of all sorts began to show their true nature, that they did not love their fellow man, that they thought homosexual people were evil and ungodly and an abomination? The Miami-Dade citizens did repeal the ordinance, with over 70% voting to do so. The city government restored the ordinance in 1998 and added gender identity to it in 2004. So this great falling away in church, did the hatred of gay and homosexual people, was that the beginning of it? Was that beginning of it? Because something shifted, y'all. I started, like even back when I started one little service and had 7 or 8 people coming in, like within no time. It was just within no time there'd be 150 people in a storefront. I mean, just people coming like, good Lord, where'd all these people come from? And all we were doing was saying, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. He came to save mankind, and we preached the good news that, if you call upon his name, anybody that would call upon his name would be saved. And then, as this movement jailed between Anita Bryant and Jerry Falwell, think about this though: the evil. I don't even want to say Anita Bryant was evil. What she did was evil. But if you ever notice, evil people are never celebrated when they die. They're never. She died in you have to scour through the back pages of something to find out that Anita Bryant, which was the most famous, hugely famous person in the world in the 70s, died, and nobody even has a whimper about it. She lived out these last years hiding and as a recluse. Her granddaughter called her and told her she was getting married to a female. And she never repented of any of that. She never repented for saying, I hurt a lot of people. No, And and then she became the darling of Jerry Falwell. And I have to be careful how I say when I say people's names now, because if somehow you do get out there and enough people see it or follow you, you could get tied up in lawsuits or whatever. But I never intentionally would ever say anything that was mistruth. But you do have to be careful nowadays in this environment. But then she got tied up with Jerry Falwell, who died sitting at his desk of a heart attack, if memory serves me right. An extremely obese man. And I don't, which without saying anything more than that, here he was going around spewing such hate and just visceral hatred toward gay and lesbian people. And yet, his body, and most, just about anybody out there that's obese or really heavily overweight will tell you, there's some issues here. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with issues here. And so he was just such an unkind man, and he got tied up in all that Jimmy Swaggart chaos and Pat Robinson, and Jimmy Swaggart was meeting prostitutes in a motel room, and there was PTL and Jim Baker and Jessica Hahn, and was that the great falling away? Was that, because to me, if my memory serves me right, it seems like the church was pretty basically stable and there was growth going on, and then the church showed their true color, which is a bunch of bigoted, homosexual, hating, homophobic evangelicals that just jumped up on stage at Republican conventions and got on TV and on all the stuff and talking about we need to keep gay people from teaching, we need to put homosexuals, the laws against them. And I think there was something about that caused a lot of the nation to say, you know what, these people are kind of seedy. These people are not good people, Because Jesus said, when you do it unto the least, if we're going to talk about the basics of Christianity, and Jimmy Carter just died, look at him. Jimmy Carter, he lived by that, that if you do it unto the least, you do it unto Christ. What they were doing toward homosexuals, gay and lesbian people, and what the MAGA crowd and Christians of today are doing against transgender people and drag queens, if you do it unto the least, you do it unto Christ. And so the great falling away is in full throttle now. Churches by the thousands are shutting down. The ones that are staying open are basically legacy buildings where you got 50 people that's kind of scraping the pennies out of the barrel to try to keep the lights on. There's not a lot of growth going on in it. But if you ask yourself why, it's obviously why. They got sidetracked with politics and Trump, and they got sidetracked with their hatred for homosexuals and gay people, and it's called